Hey, how's it going, captains? Admiral Tori here, and welcome aboard for another World of Warships video on my channel. In today's video, I want to sit down and talk about the CV rework. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because every time that Wargaming releases a patch note, I hope that they would talk about the CV rework. And the last time they talked about it was their Q&A in the beginning of 2017, which is half a year ago. And to this day, every patch note that I read, there was really no sign of Wargaming's agenda on the CV rework. And what I have here today is the Tier 9 American aircraft carrier, the Essex. This was the carrier that left a huge scar on me. Some of you guys might know me when it comes to aircraft carriers, and some of you guys are new to me because throughout the times I've been playing World of Warships, I've acquired new sailors and I've, of course, at the same time, lost some sailors. The Essex. This was the ship that really hurt me when it comes to playing carriers. This is the ship that put me into a position where I have absolutely gave up on carriers. And it's because the combination of the carriers in this game, the things I can do with carriers is very limited. At the same time, people's imaginations of carriers is beyond of my control. And this is the carrier that has really proven the point. I spent so many hours after hours, playing the Japanese and American carriers. I have unlocked the Essex. I have unlocked the Taiho. I unlocked both of these ships a year ago, almost a year ago. And yet today, I did the unbelievable thing, that is to jump on to the Essex. I only have 5 games on the Essex, the last time I actually played the Essex until today. And the reason why is because the first 5 games I played was one of the worst games I have ever experienced on World of Warships. I was so determined that at that point, it was hopeless. It was absolutely hopeless to play carriers. The first game was a fair game, but I couldn't do much because I had a stock carrier. Stock planes, stock ship, everything is stock. You cannot win against an enemy carrier who has a tier higher plane, which sails 30 knots faster than your planes, does more damage than your planes, has better survivability than your planes. You are absolutely in a disadvantage against the enemy carrier. And with those first 5 games, it was noticeable. Not because I was not enjoying to play the Essex. The Essex has some problems against the Japanese Taiho especially, but the way people treat carriers. You see, every time I play carriers, normally 99.9% of the games, you're going to be the only carrier player. And whoever you're going up against, you don't have a clue. You don't know if he's good or she's good at carriers or that person is bad. But you know for a fact that if you don't do well with the carrier, the only person that you can be blamed is really you, because you're the only one who's playing carriers. If there was a group of battleships who sit in the back of the map, of course the team is going to yell at this battleship's player. But you don't feel that victim position because you're not the only one. So it doesn't really affect the players who play battleships, cruisers, or destroyers because you're not alone when people yell at you. But with carriers, my 4th game, my 3rd to 4th game, there was one game that I played on Islands of Ice. I couldn't do anything against the enemy Taiho, absolutely nothing, and my friendly team just bashed on me. 2 of my teammates to 3 of my teammates just absolutely bashed on me, yelled in the chat saying that why do I get the shittiest CV players on my team. I try my best to explain that I am a stock carrier, but there was just no mercy. I got reported several times for the past 5 games. I got reported. If you wonder when you get reported, every time you're done with the game, it pops up the little message saying that you have lost the game or you won the game. Here's our 3 repairs, the service. It will pop up saying that you have been reported twice, 3 times, and I was reported. Nobody defended me, and you're basically in a very desperate situation where you feel cornered. I felt like this is not me. This is something I cannot deal with. And yet I'm here today playing the Essex because I had so much hope ever since 6 months ago, almost 6 months ago, that Wargaming mentions about the rework on the carriers. I had a lot of hope. I started playing a little bit more carriers because I am just sick and tired of using guns and torpedoes. I want a different play experience. I want more control, and carriers offer that different experience. At the same time, I am a big fan of Japanese and American carriers. I wouldn't dream of a day when I started playing World of Warships. I wouldn't dream of a day that I would learn to play aircraft carriers and unlock the Essex, the Shokaku, by the Kaga in the future. I wouldn't dream of a day because I thought that I was going to be playing battleships and cruisers for the entire duration of World of Warships. Eventually, if you truly want the ship that you dream of, one of my most favorite class of American aircraft carriers definitely is the Essex class. If you truly want the ship, if you have such a hard determination and willpower to unlock the ship, you will do it, even if the ship is garbage. I'm pretty sure people who play the Colorado, who have some sort of, if you see the Colorado and they like the way the Colorado looks, they would unlock it. They don't care how bad the Colorado is. To me, aircraft carriers are not in the position where it's just absolutely unplayable. I don't believe that in this current state, but they do have problems. And there is a reason why that the aircraft carrier base, coming from the beta times 2 years ago when I started in 2015, 2 years ago, when there was on average 10 to 15 carriers in the queue, and here we are in the most pitiful state, 1 to 3 carriers. And like I said, I don't know who I'm going up against. If the player is really good, I'm going to get pretty much smashed by my team for doing poorly. If I do well, believe it or not, if I devastate strike a battleship, I get those moments where I actually get reported for doing well. And there's a lot of, if I put it this way, carrier players just don't get the respect at all. Which is why I see a lot of people, I do see a lot of people who said that, man, I want to play carriers, but I'm really bad with RTS. I'm worried about having this responsibility on my shoulder. And it's a shame. It is an absolute shame that Wargaming, hasn't really put the time to fixing carriers. 2 years. 2 bloody years that aircraft carriers has been a problem. 2 years. The problem is so complicated that all the complicated problems that Wargaming has to deal with when it comes to their game is sent to the forums. That is why the forums exist. And yet, for the past 2 years, people from, who were experienced with Command & Conquer, StarCraft 2, Total War, any famous RTS game, these people who have knowledge of what's considered balanced, what is considered a good option, I've seen several posts about how to fix carriers. People went with their, time. They spent an hour or two writing up these nice, well-organized arguments about how you can fix carriers, not just for the carrier player to enjoy the game and somewhat become more relevant, but also provide support to the overall integrity of this game. And looking at what's happened recently with Wargaming, with the stealth fire, they just went with the straight up get rid of the mechanic rather than compromise with it, and all the changes they have done. I feel like the forums is just a place to make people feel like something is being worked on, Wargaming is listening, and I'm pretty sure someone is listening, but I don't have a single clue what is going on here. 2 years. This aircraft carrier is part of the game for such a long time. And I watched a video from Wargaming Southeast Asia. It was on my recommendation box. I was not subscribed to them, but it was the time lapse of the HMS Hood model, the new premium tier 7 battlecruiser that a lot of people are looking forward to. And I absolutely appreciate the work and effort that Wargaming has put into this game. They have put out patches every month. They try to fix everything in this game. They add new features, new lines, the French cruiser line. I'm really happy that they're adding more nations to this game. But there are things that have high priorities, like fixing something that has been with the game for a very long time. Adding things is always nice, but fixing the core mechanics of the game is a lot more important because that is the foundation of the game. And the fact that they put the aircraft carriers on hold, the fact that I had so much hope for them, the fact that I put so much time to unlock the Essex because I wanted the ship, the fact that I put so much effort to put into the time to unlock the Taiho, to learn how to play carriers, and the fact that I see people, the population just dwindles, and people just pretend like, oh, 2 years isn't a problem. Do you want to know how bad? I know there's a lot of players who have never tried carries, but do you want to know how bad it is to play carries, especially on the USN, because the USN have the worst of the deal, which is why I have so much problem with the Essex. You see, every time I play the Essex, I'm the only player in the game, okay? When I go against the Taiho, in a higher tier matchmaking, you know for a fact that these maps are big. I only have one fighter. Do you honestly think that I can send my fighter from A to C that fast to protect a friendly battleship who's going to get nuked by the enemy Taiho? This could have been easily fixed if they capped the matchmaking to 2-on-2, so I don't have to control the entire map with my one and single fighter. There will be a second carrier that will be fixing the other side of the map. They will be patrolling the other side map, so I don't get that responsibility. The UI, the fluidity of the UI is awful. It's god awful. It's not just the way the UI looks. You see that the top right of the third of my screen right here, above the minimap, you cannot click on that map. If you try clicking there, it won't work. It won't direct your planes there because it's bugged. It is heavily bugged. Sometimes when you initiate an attack, sometimes one of your planes will not cancel attack. And sometimes when you initiate the attack, sometimes the attack doesn't work. And then there'd be times, I don't have a clue why, but I perfectly planned out my route, and at the last second I changed just slightly a little. If you play carriers, you know for a fact that as long as the planes are not within the circle where your call for the attack is initiated, you can't go back. Right before that happens, if you can change it a little bit, as long as you're before it, it should work just fine. But sometimes, for whatever reason, I change it slightly a little bit, and even with a fair amount of distance, it will cancel the attack in terms of my planes flying right before the circle to initiate the attack, and then they just stop right there. They just slam on the brakes, and then they fly backwards a little bit and retry again. And that leaves my planes completely vulnerable. This is not fluid. This does not make sense to me. The loadout is awful. The Americans don't get fighters until tier 9. And yeah, okay, Essex, I got fighters for my strike loadout. And we're talking about strike here, but only one fighter. Like I said, that one fighter is not going to fly all the way to C. If my team does a 2 flag split, if they go A and one goes C, and the enemy Taiho or enemy carrier, even the Essex spots my fighter at A, he's just going to send his planes to C. That's it. That's all he has to do to counter me. It's this frustration in me that 2 years wasn't enough. And when I watched that HMS Hood video, the time lapse, like I said, I do appreciate that Wargame puts a lot of effort adding new things to the game, but there are priorities. It took them about 1.1 thousand hours, work hours, to model one single ship. And you're telling me that in 2 years, almost over 2 years if you count the closed beta, that they couldn't fix aircraft carriers. What they have done, I can easily, in this time lapse of 2 years, I can easily list out what they have done with carriers. Number one, they reduced the damage of the torpedo bombers and everything. They changed the pattern several times. They also changed the loadout. They overhauled the loadout for the American and the Japanese. Originally, the Japanese Shokaku had only torpedo bombers and dive bombers. They got rid of that. Okay, that fixed a big problem with the fact that they have such huge amount of power. And I understand that it's important to understand other people's position, people who don't play carriers. I think that the Shokaku was overpowered. It was a one-trick pony that they had only torpedo bombers. But yet, they did all these things to a point where it got to a point where the changes were more like nerfs. It's not about buffing or nerfing here, guys. It's the system. The system is broken. I don't care if my dive bombers were awful. I don't care if my torpedo bomb does awful amount of damage. I want a mechanic that rewards players playing aircraft carriers, whether it's spotting or offering damage or disabling ships. That's not in the game. All they did was buff and nerf, and most of it was nerf because majority of the communities don't play aircraft carriers. And as a result, the population died from 10 to 15 carriers on average to only 1 to 2 in the queue. It's an absolute shame, and I know for a fact that majority of you guys who play ships don't want to play carriers, but they want, don't want to play carriers because how bad the carrier state is. They don't want to feel that responsibility. They don't want to be bashed on. And I understand that. I really do. I know for a fact that a lot of you guys want to try carries. I'm sure that at some point you want to try carries, but you cannot do it. And to make things, better for them, they think it was better to change. But the most recent change for carriers was to remove the manual drop for tier 4, tier 5. When I made that Lexington video, the Strike Lexington video, one particular viewer commented on my video, and we kind of got into confusion because I believe that his primary language isn't English, which is understandable. Not everyone in the world speaks English, but we managed to communicate. I thought he was talking about the third person view into the planes when I was dropping my bombs. He was talking about how I do that, how I press these keys. I just press Z, but we kind of miscommunicate. He asked me why I can do this while he can't do it. And he was talking about the manual drop because he was new to carriers, I'm guessing, and we eventually figured out that he was talking about manual drop. I told him that Wargaming took out tier 4, tier 5 manual drops because they were worried about seal clubbing, when really it's the system. It's the bloody system here. The problem is so complicated, right? 2 years, which was not enough, with a bunch of people suggesting it in the forums who has experience with different types of games. Go on the forums and search it up. I'm losing, my patience here. I'm so frustrated. Patch after patch, half a year ever since they made that promise, no words, just no words, and they had the audacity to release the Kaga. I remember them saying that they're not going to release anything new to carriers as long as they try to fix the CV, like in general. They're releasing the Kaga. And after I saw that Hood video that spent 1,000 hours, I really kind of questioned what was going through their mind. They have changed the Alabama. You know why? Because the community's outcry. They had the power to do that. I just wish people give carriers, the community of carriers, a chance. But like I said, not many people play carriers, not many people really care about it. And I guarantee you, if there was a lot of people who play carriers, or if the voice is big enough in the community, the heart of any game will always be the community. Carriers will get their attention and will be fixed. But I just don't know. I don't know. One of the most beautiful carriers in this game, Essex. I'm pretty sure you guys, when you guys see ships that looks cool, I'm pretty sure you guys want to try them. But like I said, it's a shame that I had to deal with this. Like the lag with the way you attack, the way how things are managed, the balance in this game is just awful. Are you kidding me? The Japanese Taiho has 3 torpedo bombers. They service 16 seconds per torpedo bombers, 4 per squadron, 4 torpedo bombers per squadron. So 4 times 16 if they were to service each time. American dive bombers, which is RNG based, you don't know if you're gonna hit or not, they take 42 seconds on the Essex. 3 times, almost 3 times, 3 squadrons of a Japanese Taiho. And it's RNG based. Torpedo bombers aren't RNG. Where's the balance? Where is it? And yes, I truly believe that the American dive bombers have as much potential damage as the Taiho. But the thing is, dive bombers only get the potential if they go against these big ships. Taiho, they can handle everything. Taiho has 2 2 fighters that can handle both sides of the map. They had the strafing mechanic. I don't really understand the strafing. I know the people who play carriers love the strafing because you get to shoot down like 40 planes in one strafe if you're really good at this game. But the fact that one set of skill can just completely negate an entire squadron of planes and put that player who had to deal with this problem for a minute and a half just to get those planes back up in the sky. Don't you think that's frustrating? If you want a terminology, like a similar analogy to this, I don't know how many people play MOBAs, but when you play your character in MOBAs, you have like basic skills that you can use like almost every 5 to 10 seconds, depending on the skills. There's specialties, there's the regular attacks, and there's that one special skill that probably take up to a minute to 2 or 3 minutes to get, and you can use it and then go back on cooldown. That special skill is used on special occasions. In this game, that strafing is basically the special skill. You can use it as much as you want, but it expends a lot of ammo. But just because it expends a lot of ammo still doesn't justify that it's balanced. I personally think that strafing wasn't a smart idea. my original imagination of like fighters in this game is that if the enemy planes are going to send 4 planes that are going to attack a ship, and I have 2 fighters, then I have to make a choice between those 2 sets of squadrons to take down, while the other 2, my friendly battleship or friendly cruiser, gotta have to deal with. But hey, it's better than dealing with 4 torpedo bombers or 4 dive bombers. I don't know. That's what I had envisioned. But yeah, they had the strafing mechanic that can take down everything. It is not that hard to use, guys. It's not really that hard. You just take some time to practice in the bot game. You can do it. I wish the better choice would have been to lock down the plane and have some kind of skill where you just press on it and it buffs your planes to shoot down the squadron as fast as possible so you can get on with the next squadron. But strafing, I don't know what strafing is. You gotta think about it. Can you imagine an American CV player like me who had to deal with this problem without having fighters from tier 4 to tier 5 to tier 8 strike loadout with no fighters? It's not just me who's being affected by this. It's my friendly team because they don't get fighter support. The combination of having imbalanced Japanese versus American. I know Americans have better fighters. I really do. My was it tier 9 Corsair F4 FU4, I don't know. Was it F? Yeah, I don't know what the planes, but the Corsair VOT by the VOT company. They're very powerful planes, but there's so many problems, and how it's not just me talking about carriers, guys. There's plenty of other fundamental problems in this game, not just carriers, but this is just from my personal perspective. 2 years, I don't know what it takes. What does it take for Wargaming to realize how problematic carriers are? And I talked about this. This is the integrity of the game. This is part of the ecosystem. You gotta realize that just because if you don't play carriers doesn't mean that you should neglect carriers, because it's part of the game. Everyone is a family here. I appreciate destroyers even if I don't play destroyers. I appreciate battleship even if I don't play battleship. I appreciate carriers even if I don't play carriers. That is the mentality. You got to appreciate every factor of this game. It's what makes the world special. You cannot have everyone playing one single class of ship. And the fact that we neglected this has affected not just the carrier player, but I talked about this in my other video. It affected the entire ecosystem of the game. At one point, when carriers were at their lowest, destroyers were so powerful because nobody was a natural predator to destroyers. It was carriers, because carriers spot the Japanese torpedoes to prevent the battleships from being hit by the Shimakase. The carriers spotted out the gunboat destroyers and spotted them on the objective. It helps scout your team, because in the beginning match, before carriers were extinct, in the beginning match, friendly carrier would send their planes over to the enemy side and count how many battleships, count how many cruisers, who's on the objective, and it'll let your friendly team know, as as a team-based game, of who is on which side. If there's 3 battleships on that side, you better send your 3 battleships to that side to deal with those battleships. It will only make sense because if you want to play battleship and make damage, you want to do some damage, you gotta search for battleships. Then we get these games today. The games we get today is lemon training. We send everyone to C, enemy team send everyone to A, because nobody got intelligence of where these planes are coming at. And when destroyers were so powerful at one point, guess what they did? Instead of fixing the core mechanics of the game that kept the destroyers in check, they added more radar and they added more hydroacoustic search to cruisers. And now, destroyers, which is part of the family, part of the game, I seen a lot of posts recently on forums saying that radar is a problem because there's radar every corner in the higher tiers. So destroyers having a troublesome time trying to go into the objective, and I find it really funny how when battleships and cruiser players who never play destroyers yell at their destroyers and blame the destroyers because they're not doing their job by taking the objective, it's not their fault, because they understand that there's a Des Moines there. There is a Moscow there. They can't just send their ships to B. They feel victimized, the same way as I feel when I play carriers, because there's things I cannot do with the carrier. My one and only fighter can only do so much. But since I'm the only carrier player in the game, and the game is capped at 2 carriers per team, it's really easy to blame carriers. It's that easy. And carriers just don't get the respect or the attention. I don't know, what does it take? I'm desperate, guys. I'm really desperate for Wargaming to do something. I'm surprised that there are a few community contributors I watch. They talked about this. They talked about how carriers need to be reworked, but nothing's been talked about. 6 months into this year, I'm starting to feel very, very frustrated and impatient. I'm so desperate to the point that I would sell. I would trade. If some magical being came up to me and say that I had to trade something valuable from my Water Warships account, if you want this change to happen right away, or at least have some kind of word, I would trade my pride of my port, my special prize, my tier 10, my only tier 10 ship, the Yamato, just for Wargaming to fix carriers. I'm willing to sacrifice that. I'm willing to sacrifice, if they were to reset my entire Japanese battleship line back to Hashidate, just to rework carriers, I would do it. I would do it. Because I think I have enough time with playing with guns. I want something different. And it's not just my decisions, not my wanting here. It's for the sake of everyone in this game, because like I said, carriers play a big role and everyone has their own job in this game. Battleships provide support fire against bigger targets, make the cruisers that don't get near the destroyers. Destroyer takes objective, carriers provide the information and protect your team. It's not right to take away the freedom of one class of ship because you don't play it. It's just not right. The same way as I see destroyers being, right now destroyers are having trouble since some time. I noticed that a lot of destroyer players are complaining about what Wargaming has done recently. They have been complaining, and I know there's like a little war in this Wargaming community because people are blaming the battleship players, cruisers are blaming this players, and I don't know. For once, just for once, can we just come together? If the community was powerful enough to change the Alabama, to my surprise, I was surprised. I was absolutely surprised they could do it. Can we for once fix a 2-year-old problem? I don't know what else to say. I worked so hard to get the Essex, played the first 5 games that left a scar on me. For almost a year, I haven't played the Essex. That is, like, think about it. Your most favorite ship, one of the most favorite ship that you play on Water Warships, and then you decided to not play the ship because how bad it was. What you had to deal with, the disrespected mentality of people, picking on you because you played the ship. And you put that ship on hold to protest. I was part of the people who protesting. The reason I stopped playing carriers for a year was not just because of the game that left a scar on me, but because I was protesting to Wargaming. Because Wargaming always pulled these statistics from their server. They always talk about this when Dasha Perova talk about this, all these lovely things about the patch. Arizona, the premium ship that came out, 2.0 Sigma value. She had a 60% win rate on average for anyone who picks up the Arizona. Tier 6. That was abnormal. Absolutely abnormal. She was very powerful. They nerfed her right away to 1.8 Sigma, and now she's normalized to like 55 to 60% win rate. They were so swift about it. And yet, this is all coming from statistics. They noticed that destroyers were doing better than usual when the carriers went away. So they decided to add hydro and radar. I mean, how do I know this? Why they decided to do this? Well, American cruisers were in this game for quite some time. Americans were known for their radar. And yet when the Soviet cruisers came out, when carriers starts to dwindle, they had radar before the American cruisers, which caused a big uproar in the community saying that how can the Soviet get radar and why not the Americans? Because the Americans were the one who actually utilized a lot of radar technology during World War II. The Germans came up with their hydroacoustic search to deal with the Japanese destroyer. It seems that it wasn't enough, so they absolutely destroyed the stealth on the Japanese destroyer, which kind of puts them in a really awkward position. And there's still problems with the Japanese destroyer. It's a chain reaction of problems. And I don't know if I'm sounding selfish here because I don't know what to say. 6 months in, I've been anticipating for something from the patch notes, but I read the 0.6.5 patch notes. It's great that they're offering the Bismarck campaign. It's great that they're offering these new features. I'm not, being, absolutely not appreciating all these things that Wargaming did. They are one of the best free-to-play games companies I ever played when it comes to support. I played a free-to-play game from a Korean company, and one time my entire account got hacked. Okay, I lost a lot of things, and I used money in that particular account. I probably used like $50, but that was when I was young. They took everything from me, absolutely everything. I submitted a ticket, and I haven't got a word back yet. And one day, 3 years down the road, I decided to just play the game and screw around. I logged in my account, and for two years ago, they replied to me, or 1 year ago, I don't know. So it took them 2 to 3 years to reply to me. Jesus Christ, 2 to 3 years, and what they say was like, "Oh, sorry, we can't do anything about it." Do you really want to know what it feels like to play carriers? at that time, even to this day. If you guys have never played carriers, my frustration isn't just the mechanics in this game, the way the carriers behave. I would love to play carriers even if the Essex was crap. My frustration arises with the fact that the way you play carriers, there's things that you cannot do, and the fact that the enemy team or your friendly team just destroy you. I get absolutely shit on by my teammates a lot. There's no other class of ship that I get reported more often than playing a carrier. And that is the life of a carrier. We have to deal with this and accommodate with the poor ways the carriers run this game. That's what we have to deal with. Destroyers, battleships, someone yells at you, don't worry, because there's plenty of battleship players out there who are on your team and you don't feel lonely. But when I play carriers, I feel pretty lonely. I don't know who I'm dealing with. I don't know if the player is good. If the player is good, I feel bad because then I'll get crapped on by the enemy player, and at the same time, I let down my team. And I know for a fact, just to make it worse, add insult to my injury, that my team will call me out. Every game, it is a psychological warfare, and I don't recall a time when I was playing carrier that someone defended me. Maybe one or two times. There's no system where there's not even a call out. Like, you got, affirmative, negative. There's not even a call out for health when it comes to dealing with plays. If someone spots playing, it should be automatically called out to me because there's a lot of things that's going on the map. I'm literally watching 11 ships on my team against the enemy carriers. At the same time, I'm watching 12 ships on the enemy team to find which ship I should strike. I'm doing 2 jobs at once, watching the entire map. Everything is all over the place, and being yelled at because I'm not doing a perfect job. I certainly do not believe that an average player can pull this type of job off. It's not friendly to play carriers, guys. It really isn't. That is the life of carriers. It feels personal to me because I wanted this is my personal wanting of this game. That is the ultimate thing I want from this game. And when people talk about personal stuff, they're wanting, it's pretty obvious that sounds selfish. And so be it. But don't you think that 2 years was a little bit overkill for a problem? If you want to have an idea, if you play battleships, can you imagine that you scope into your reticle and you try to fire your gun because the guy is showing you full broadside. All of a sudden you have a 5 seconds or 1 second, 1 to 5 seconds delay. Like, it just doesn't work. You have to click multiple times on the mouse because sometimes it just doesn't work. Or maybe you scope in your reticle and all of a sudden it does a 180 and glitches all over the screen and have some kind of seizure. Is that clunky? It's clunky to play carriers. Can you imagine your damage control doesn't go off right away? Can you imagine that sometimes your turrets will do some really weird stuff? And ultimately, can you imagine you are the only player on your team playing that class of ship? You are the only battleship player, and people demand you to do the most absurd thing. Battleship player, you're the only battleship player. Why don't you go into the capture zone and help us? You have a lot of health. If you're a smart battleship player, you don't do that because you know for a fact that you're vulnerable against torpedoes. And since you're the only battleship, you're going to be focused fire. You're just asking to die. Destroyer. Like I said, I'm pretty sure destroyers and carriers can have a common ground here because now you guys are facing problems with the community because majority of the community seems to be that they don't really like destroyers, especially battleship players. They just don't like how destroyers operate in this game, which is why destroyers got a lot of changes recently. Japanese destroyers still a problem. Russian destroyers, German destroyers, I don't know why the Russian destroyers are acting like cruisers. I don't know why the German destroyers at one point was really crappy until they removed stealth fire. I don't know why these problems are coming in everywhere. As much as I want the Italian Navy, the whatever other nation Navy, the Royal Navy, we want all these new features, but these ships, these new nations doesn't mean anything if the game is not fun to play. Because what makes the games fun to play is the core mechanic, the way it runs, the way it feels. It doesn't matter what ship you play because at some point you realize that most of these ships feel very similar. Might be a slight difference, like Germans have the turtleback armor, American got big guns, Japanese has big guns. At the end of the day, what makes it fun is the way the game runs, the way it feels, the way, RNG and all this stuff. And what I beg for is really wargaming, or at least the community come together like they did with the Alabama, like they did with the stealth fire, like they did with everything. Really, I know for a fact that there's not many people out there who play carriers, but just I am pleading for wargaming to fix it. I'm playing for some magical figure come out of nowhere at the middle of the night, ask me, do you want to make a deal? Do you want to trade your Yamato or even your American battleship just to fix this? The next day that they're gonna fix it. Just at least a word. I am like crying for the sake of carriers. That is my personal, my personal wanting in this game. It really is. Like I said, I appreciate I'm truly grateful that Wargaming is a really good company for getting things done here. They add new features, they try to change things to make the game balanced. It doesn't feel like pay to win to me, even though people are saying that it's pay to win. No, it's not really pay to win. If you want to play a pay to win game, play Combat Arms. That's a good game to demonstrate pay to win. There's a lot of shooter games from Korean companies who had really good games in the beginning, and they started to do the pay to win. Play Black Desert Online. I remember the integrity. The integrity of that company was, we are not going to employ pay to win. But since there wasn't enough subscription, there's not enough people playing the game, they employ pay to win on Black Desert Online, which is why I don't play that game no more, because that company lied to me. I felt that, lost in trust, that loyalty. Like I said, if you don't really feel the same positions as me and you just don't think that carries as a problem, fine, because it's not right for me to force people to believe what I have to say. But you gotta realize that as a community, aircraft carriers is part of the family of this game. It's part of the community, and the fact that you want to kill off the carriers because you don't play carriers, you're just killing a part of your family here, part of the game. Everyone here is in to play World of Warships. It's Warships. World of Warships. Warships. Keywords Warships. And like I said, it's a shame that I know there's people out there who wants to try out carriers, but they don't want to because of the amount of disrespect, the amount of pressure, the amount of responsibility they have to face. The Essex, I work so hard. Such a beautiful carrier. And I just get bashed on. So I don't know what else to say. That's today's video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time on World of Warships.